All right, the first thing we've got is status updates. Since I'm speaking, I'll talk a little bit about what I've been working on. There isn't too much that's specific to the platform subteam, but there is an open pipeline PR to the Tecton catalog. I'm still having issues with the catalog community and getting PRs accepted. The dependency like tasks that the pipeline uses, those took a bit. And I guess I was hoping that once those were accepted, the pipeline would be accepted a lot sooner, but still just poking people there. I will continue to do so, and my hope is to hopefully get out of using the Tecton managed catalog and for us to be able to provide a catalog. But still waiting on some things to be resolved there within the Tecton ecosystem. All right, any other status updates?
Just been working on asset cache stuff still, but it's really just adding extra tests and comments at this point. Everything pretty much works. So
Cool. Anything else? Okay, we'll move on to release planning. I know David isn't here, but there was a conversation brought up by Emily about the potential of a patch release for Pack. Specifically, there's some hardship around duplicate layers, and more specifically when the quote unquote same version of the build pack and is being brought in from two different locations, and apparently it's not matching for whatever the reason may be. That creates a pretty gnarly error that's really hard to troubleshoot. My feedback was more or less on seeing if there's anything we could do that doesn't require a patch, given that this issue has, essentially existed, for a very long time. It sounds like David is of the opinion that we should be able to do a patch release. The only thing is that I'm not entirely sure who's taking ownership of that right now. So I don't know if there's any opinions here or if any volunteers want to take that on.
yeah, I can ship a patch release for this. Looks like this PR or the fix has yet to be merged in, right? There's like, I think some comment updates, etc. But yeah, I can do this.
Cool. Is that, again, I'm kind of letting David drive a lot of this out. But yeah, if you need additional support, please feel free to ping me. I'll add that as an action item and tag you on it. Yeah. Okay, anything else for release planning? All right, moving on to discussions needed for Pack. I'll go ahead and share my screen. The purpose of this agenda item is more or less to bring up some of the topics that or issues within Pack that might require some additional discussion. If there's anything on here that you'd like to discuss, please speak up now.
I am about to post something for the verbose stuff.
Okay.
Wait a minute. I just exceeded the maximum character length. 2 seconds.
On GitHub?
Yeah.
Is that a thing? I didn't even know that was a thing.
But
does that mean that you'd like to discuss it right now, or you'd like people to just review it?
I mean, I think the discussion will take like 2 seconds.
Cool.
It's basically, I don't really know if we want to do this because it's either you get almost nothing or you get like a humongous fire hose of stuff, which is why I'm running into this massive character limit trying to post some of the output. But yeah, so it seems like maybe we don't want to do this.
All right, so I think there's like a solution right in the middle, right? Where potentially we could trim down the amount of output that GGCR produces, right? More or less considering it like a filter function.
There we go. Yeah, so I mean,
Okay, so it looks like debug is really just outputting most of the HTTP traffic. Is that what we're referring to?
yeah. And the other two options don't give you anything, really.
So pack, I believe, only has two options, right? It's either verbose or it's not.
Well, so the other two options is the GGCR, like logging. The hooks into the GGCR library provide 3 levels of logging.
Right.
You can, and this is just output with those 3 levels to figure out if one works for us. But, yeah.
Okay. I guess maybe I'm at a point of contention with myself because I know that the network traffic has helped debug or troubleshoot some issues in the past. And so to me, it seems valuable, but I'm not entirely sure that it falls under the verbose category of the output, right? Like I feel like I don't remember exactly what the lifecycle has, but I feel like log levels seems a little bit more appropriate where there's more than just two tiers, whether you're verbose or you just do, standard output. And then I believe we might even have a quiet mode, right? Um, to me, this seems like maybe more trace level, right? Which again is very useful for troubleshooting stuff, but not something that we currently support. And I'm not sure if we want to support.
Yeah, I mean, uh, do you recall what instances this debug info is useful for? I know the
Mm,
last time I used it, it was like it was useful, but I had to go through a lot of trouble to set things up very specifically for like and like change pack a little bit to like limit the amount of output I was seeing so I could figure out what the heck was going on.
interesting. Yeah, I think that's where like that intermediate solution I was referring to, right? Like some sort of filtering to only the network traffic that we care about, maybe in a verbose mode. Um, but yeah, I'm not entirely sure that there's like a very specific solution at this point in time. The other thing I was thinking about too is that some of the networking is actually occurs inside of the life cycle, right? So posting up to a registry and whatnot. Because I was thinking about the hanging issue that they recently ran into.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this has this logging set in both pack and the life cycle at the same level all the way across both
Right.
these
But
examples.
we would have
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
figure out how to enable it on the life cycle as well to have
Right.
that consistent workflow or output. Interesting. I think it may be worth I think you did us a service here by putting like what the output looks like. It might be worth adding the comments that we just brought up about like some of the potential solutions, some of the shortcomings, and then ultimately we'll probably want to hold off on this until we see more of a need for it or more of a desire. I don't know if you want to add that comment. If not, I could also add it.
I'm adding it right now.
Oh, look at that. Thank you, sir. Okay, were there any other topics on the discussions needed that we wanted to talk about?
I realized I missed the last sub-team sync in the you had mentioned, or I don't know if it came up, the Docker host flag. I still owe some putting some thoughts down on that. So I'm happy to wait on that one unless someone else wanted to get any contexts in the meantime.
That's a good call out. I know I'm definitely interested. What would be your preference? Because I think I have it, the context. I just would like to maybe discuss some of the options and clarify some things.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so my summary of the current situation is we assume a Docker daemon on a local Docker daemon is the default for all Pack users. Podman folks want to be able to use Podman daemon instead. And then for use case I use a lot is a remote daemon, usually a Windows remote daemon communicating over TLS. So like this was an incremental, at least the initial feature was to add a -- Docker host flag, which was targeted just at specifically supporting Podman. It went through a few iterations, and I think what it landed on is sort of potentially confusing to some users. It's really just a way to override what happens inside the lifecycle, inside of the build container, and which Docker host gets present there. So it's not really telling all of Pack which Docker host to use. It's just specifically targeted at what happens inside that build container. So I think what I kind of want to do as the next step is to chart out all the rest of the scenarios and different ways that you might want to provide an alternate daemon, and kind of holistically come up with a solution for what the flag should be there. Obviously, we ship this and that people might be using it, so we kind of want to keep that in mind too. So yet another scenario to work in there. But I think there is kind of, it's starting to feel like there's a pretty simple way to solve for most of these scenarios. I just kind of want to like put all my thoughts out there to get feedback on that, see if people agree.
Okay, cool. I think that makes sense. Seeing all the use cases would definitely help bring a better picture to it. I know in the last meeting when this was discussed, I think I was maybe oversimplifying it to the point where I was wondering why a single flag wouldn't be as useful, right? Or wouldn't be like the best case where we would have just one Docker flag that does apply to both Pack and the lifecycle, right? Because I think that is the general expectation. And my hope would be that that particular solution would work for both the life cycles targeting of a Docker daemon as well as Pack of itself, right? And I know that there may be some like networking use cases that are probably the things that you're speaking to, where the life cycle can't access the thing that Pack can access, right? And in those particular cases, I think, again, my simplification was like, if that were to happen, just providing the user with more guidance on what to set that one value to would be ideal versus having multiple flags for configuring multiple aspects of how communication occurs, right? Because I basically don't think it would be useful if the end user needs to know that there's something else, like there's this container running underneath it that the lifecycle needs to figure out how networking goes into it.
Right. 100% agree. Yeah, I think a single flag is the right way to go. I think right now there's sort of a de facto two sources of information, which is the Docker host environment variable exposed to Pack. So if we could make that not be part of, like, if you use Docker host, it stops paying attention to this other source.
Right.
Just like make it straightforward. So I think I think it's all signs are leading back to single Docker host flag. It's just how do we cram all the information in there and meanwhile support the behavior or determine how important it is to support the behavior we already have right now.
Right. Okay. Yeah,
So
that totally makes sense. Do you know, I guess, what the strategy is for writing all these opinions down?
I had done a little bit of it in the original issue of just like 5 different scenarios, what the user is trying to do, the exact pack invocation, and then just hand wavy of what the expected outcome would be. It wasn't on this issue that's that linked here. This was a user coming back and saying, hey, the feature you just introduced seemed weird. But the source issue, I think is 988 or something like that. So yeah, to answer your question, I would just kind of lay it out like markdown document with 5 different headers and each one being one example. Does that sound like it would work for this?
Yeah, I wonder if creating an RFC that's targeted to the platform team would be the like a more favorable method.
Yeah.
Just because then we could iterate and comment on a single document. Because I think that the comments, as they are now for issues, become a little bit confusing to like follow the story, right?
Yeah.
And now that I think we could target just a sub team, we could have this conversation within this scope and not, have to worry too much about it being overly exposed, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
that sounds perfect. Yeah. Yeah, I'll do that.
Cool. Looking forward to that. All right. Anything else on that? Okay, moving on to RFCs. We have a few RFCs to review. I'll go ahead and share that. Okay, so maybe we'll start at the top. Anthony, I know you have a draft RFC. Is this something that you'd like to discuss at this point in time?
Maybe not for this meeting. I definitely wanted to speak about it at working group. Maybe the next implementation, if things move forward there, I'll bring it up again. But
Okay.
Just because of time, I guess. And
sounds good. Okay, looking forward to that one. Pack cache options. I believe we reviewed this last time. And I know that there's some edits that I'm wanting to make to this. So unless there's any questions, we could just skip over this one. All right. We have project descriptor domain RFC that already has the issues created for the platform. And I think we're in FCP. So I think we're good there. The next one is package refactoring, FCP issues created. We're good there as well. Hopefully those will get merged in here soon. And then the last one is application mix-ins. I believe it's a draft, so probably not worth discussing. Any questions, comments, concerns on RFCs?
Is there a way we tell which ones are targeted just for platform versus the general group?
It should be this flag here, right? The platform. At least that's what I've been using as an indicator.
Because there's like project descriptor, right? Which has the platform flag, but goes through like the normal RFC, I guess, versus ones that are.
I see. Yeah.
At one point, I thought I heard somebody say that sub-team specific RFCs should actually be PR'd to a subfolder of the RFC repo and not the top level 0000. But I've never done that and I didn't see anyone else do it, so.
Yeah, I just wonder if we need a different label or something for it.
Yeah, maybe a combination of two labels, right? So we could have the platform label, but then just another label that says generically like sub-team RFC. So that way we don't have to have like sub-team RFC / platform and then duplicate labels. I know Ben was supposed to create an RFC for this process that we've just started following. So maybe just feedback there. If you all remember, maybe we could bring it up in a working group. See where we are
Yeah.
with that.
Might just bring it up in leadership again.
Cool. Okay, now that we're done with RFCs, I think we have some, I added ARM support to the topic. I think, Micah, since you are here, and I know that you've played around a little bit with, on the hacking side of ARM, but also like multi-platform support, adding Windows and whatnot. I am curious to know what either like the intentions are currently, maybe some findings, and if there's any like future work that you might be working on that relates to this.
Yeah, I'll say most of my inspiration so far has just been out of personal interest. Hasn't overlapped a lot with our teamwork, unfortunately, but there's perhaps that will change. I think that's unfortunately out of my hands, but I think I'd be super interested to know if there's other folks in the community that have like especially if Salesforce folks or any other people have interest in this, because I think my hobby approach to it could probably be made better by like a direct product alignment. I think that like the biggest pieces that feel like are going to come up as discussion points are how to tease apart the fact that most daemons can sort of gloss over the fact that ARM support can work and or have emulated support be in there. I think we'll need to potentially know, like, do we need new stack IDs for things that are going to be ARM, or do we use mixins to differentiate these things apart? Like all of it kind of, there's just some interesting seams that are a little murky to me now. But I think to your point, like most of it does align pretty well with what we've done for Windows already. Just need to like, I wonder how strict we need to be with the differentiation of things. Like we have a Bionic stack. Do we need a Bionic ARM stack and a Bionic AMD64? And does it balloon out from there? But to like avoid going too deep into the details, I think I would just love to know like a straightforward user scenario and have that kind of drive some of this out. Probably definitely warrants a big RFC, but I don't necessarily know. Just given the context I have, if I'm the one to lead it right now.
Yeah, I guess just speaking from the Salesforce side, I've not heard anything come up with ARM. Unfortunately, it's probably not the news you wanted to hear, but
that's
yeah,
fine.
just-
That's news too.
Yeah, no desire for it is definitely news, right?
I don't know if there's no desire, just hasn't come up that I've heard of in the various channels. Like maybe there's people who want it that are our customers, but we definitely just haven't gotten far enough where we've kind of seen that interest yet.
Yeah, and I'll call it too, like just because I haven't heard a customer on my side, like a Windows customer is not going to ask for ARM stuff. I'm probably the worst source of data on there too. So I think there very well maybe other folks around who are can lead that a little bit more. Like I said, most of it's just been personal interest, and I definitely would be happy to dive deep into the technical pieces, but looking for a good thing to drive it out.
I know in one of our either working groups or office hours, there was a Google rep. I don't know, I don't remember exactly the title, but they were curious about ARM support, and it did sound like they were hoping to support it, right? That like they were investigating the feasibility of support with Buildpacks in the picture. So I do think that there are some like use cases, product end user use cases that are probably worth exploring. And I think that brought up a lot of really good questions. And if I remember correctly, the one action item that we have right now is probably to create like a matrix of all the possible like permutations of where ARM support, right, comes into play and like what that would mean, right? So is it like a ARM host with Docker daemon elsewhere, right? Like what does that look like? Is it the build packs themselves running in ARM architecture, or is it the OCI image that's being produced in ARM architecture fashion? So like I think that those are the questions, and like we want to create this matrix and maybe prioritize like which one of those like permutations makes the most sense to really like put a stamp behind and some focus on.
Yeah, I think that definitely makes a lot of sense.
Are you thinking of, because I feel like this is one thing that has come up from some, I think we're at time. I'll make this quick. From some of the, I think, initial discussions around stuff in the spec was like the build and run image having to be the same architecture. I think ARM probably is one of those use cases where it brings that into question.
Yep.
Because I feel like a lot of the stuff I've seen has definitely been like cross-compiled to ARM target, which I think brings that. I think that's probably one of the most interesting aspects of kind of this discussion for ARM support.
Yeah, that's a really good call out. Yeah, I think seeing this in matrix form would be really useful to tease that apart. I'd love to see that dimension on there too.
Cool, that makes sense. I believe this meeting actually goes for another 30 minutes. If I'm not mistaken, we extended it.
Oh, we did? Cool.
Yeah. That being said, I do think we are at the end of the agenda item unless there's more discussion here.
I'm just wondering if anyone has the link to that action item that came up in the previous meeting about ARM support. Just
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say this, but I think I inadvertently volunteered myself to do it because nobody else did. But it was in a working group meeting that I could maybe find the link to. So if you missed that conversation, be part of that.
I was just wondering if there's like an issue or some formal place where the output format that we want is like written out or anything like that.
Yeah, no, I guess from my perspective, like I'm having issues on this, like determining exactly where to put it, right? I think ultimately it might start off as a HackMD or Google Doc and then take it from there.
I'll say I would love to be as involved as I can with it, but I'm a little short on bandwidth at the moment, but that might change in the near future.
Cool. Yeah, I'll definitely create something and I'll share it. Most likely in the ARM Slack channel. So if you're not already there, that'd probably be where a lot of this conversation takes place. All right, anything else?
I feel like I've missed a few of these, Javier. So I know at one point we talked about in the leadership meeting talking on kind of the roadmap items that were laid out and how that potentially applies to the platform sub-team. And if there isn't stuff on the agenda, maybe that's a good thing to talk about. It hasn't been discussed already.
Yeah, we reviewed it. It looks like last week. I'm looking down here. Yeah, last week. And I think there wasn't any real outcome or feedback that was produced that required an action item other than adding labels and yeah, to all the repos. And I believe there's a PR to add them to all of the repos because I added it to some, but I don't believe all of them are there just quite yet. I think you should be tagged on there. Request for review.
Okay.
Cool. Does that answer your question, Terrence?
I guess when you say tag and label repos, what repos are you talking about?
So I think based on the conversation that we had, because these are like project level scoped items, right? You could maybe even consider them sort of like epics. And so we wanted, like, one of the ideas was we wanted to like identify issues that were created that could be associated with a roadmap item so that we could, at a eye glance, give them a little bit more higher precedence or higher priority. So that's what the general basis for this is. But at the end of the day, how it translates is creating GitHub issues, or sorry, GitHub labels that we could add to issues. And we have a GitHub label sync mechanism that basically would make sure that we have these labels in all the repos. And that's the PR that I was mentioning.
Okay, gotcha.
Trying to see if I can find it real quick. All right, so just added it to the chat. It seems like I added just the learning maintainers, to which I believe David responded to. No,
Cool,
I
thanks.
CC'd the core team as well. Sorry, but I didn't request a review from the core team. All right, does that all make sense?
Yeah.
All right, anything else? All right, if there's nothing else, it seems like we could call it early. All right, thank you all.